Lomachenko vs Rigondeaux, WBO super featherweight showdown should be something to behold. But in the early hours of tomorrow, two almost perfect boxers can showcase it in its purest form. Lomachenko puts his WBO super featherweight title on the line against former super bantamweight champion Guillermo Rigondeaux at Madison Square Garden in New York. It should be something to behold. It should be a fight that boxing cherishes, and it should be something anyone with an interest in sport watches, even if it is billed as one for the purists. There is no doubting that boxing is a dirty game, one rightly ridiculed at times for its politics that stopped the best fights happening and corruption, which ruins not only outcomes of bouts but also careers. Then there are the life-changing, and sometimes life-ending, injuries that make this sport hard to defend even for its biggest cheerleaders. But in its purest form it is arguably one of the most skilled sports. It can almost be art, and it can be the sweet science that it is famously nicknamed. Two of the very best will meet at one of the world's most famous fight venues, and it is the recipe to be something to savor. Of course it is not choreographed, so there can be no guarantees of anything, no matter the type of matchup or build-up given. But in the early hours of tomorrow, two of the very best at the true skills of this sport will meet in the theater at one of the world's most famous fight venues, and it has the recipe to be something to savor. When any child walks into a boxing gym, the first lesson they are taught before they even put on a pair of gloves is that this is a sport where you avoid punches first and then respond. The two that are sharing the ring in the Big Apple have gone beyond mastering that craft. They are the closest you can get to perfect at it. There are 4 Olympic gold medals, 4 world amateur titles, and over 700 bouts in the unpaid ranks, with less than a half a dozen defeats between them. Then there are 4 world titles from just 27 fights in the professional ranks between the pair, with just one of those a defeat. That belongs to Ukrainian star Lomachenko, 29, but it is no slight on his ability, rather an over-ambitious attempt to win a world title in just his second professional fight against Orlando Salido. The Beijing and London Olympic gold medalist actually wanted to fight for the title on his debut, but was not allowed by the boxing rule makers. Instead, he would become a 2-weight world champion after just 7 fights. Lomachenko is possibly the most complete fighter in history. He may never get the exposure or build a record that will line him up along the likes of Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson and Sugar Ray Leonard, but some of his abilities surpass theirs. Lomachenko has a superb defense, frighteningly fast footwork, a viciously quick attack, and the desire to entertain that makes him a joy to watch. So surely facing a 37-year-old who has been often inactive over a 9-year pro career and is moving up in 2 weights should be an easy night. Not when it is Rigondeaux in the opposite corner. This is a man who was so good as an amateur he often got bored in bouts but still lived not far from poverty. The Sydney and Athens Olympic champion escaped Castro's Cuba at the second attempt on a speedboat to Mexico and then Miami in a plan hatched by an Irishman called Gary Hyde. It was a getaway that was initially inspired, if not directly, by Irish dance legend Michael Flatley. It is tale as crazy as it sounds, and that is without mentioning the Cuban's first attempt to flee when he was discovered in a brothel. Wrongly tainted as boring by those with influence in America who are blind to his talent, Rigondeaux has found the professional game a frustrating one that has not given him the spoils he is owed. The Cuban is one of the greatest counterpunchers the sport has ever seen. The term slick southpaw should have been invented solely for him. He has touched the canvas more than once, but that only adds to the allure of this pint-sized puncher with reflexes sharper than a razor. Saul Alvarez's controversial draw with Gennady Golovkin in September was billed as boxing's fight of the year, but the announcement of this clash on the eve of that middleweight duel brought almost as much excitement among those in the know. That night in Las Vegas, those two middleweights delivered a rollercoaster fight that had the thrill-seekers enthused. This may not have that one-punch power for those with a thirst for heavy blows, but the intrigue as to what will actually happen when two of the purest boxers on the planet meet for 36 minutes more than makes up for that. Lomachenko is the favorite owing to his age, size and weight advantage, but Rigondeaux is an enigma that few have been able to work out. That is what makes this fight the beautiful side of the sport that has so many ugly features. That is what makes this unmissable.